Welcome to enRich Relationships, a podcast designed to help leaders improve their personal and professional relationships from a father and son team.
We each bring executive corporate experience in both public and private companies, as well as personal experience as brothers, fathers, and sons. I'm Dax Rich.
And I'm Larry Rich, and together we discuss different leadership skills and concepts that will help you at work and at home.
Life has a tendency of throwing us a lot of curveballs, and those curveballs sometimes come in the form of a hard conversation. There's a lot of times in my life where I feel like I'm smoothly sailing across life, and then a situation happens or an event happens that causes me to have a hard conversation, or at least need to have a hard conversation, and I'm left at a crossroads of either, do I have that hard conversation with that person? Or do I keep my mouth shut and say nothing and bottle it up?
Hard conversations can arise both in our family as well as in our professional life. Many times it's tempting to, because of fear or just insecurity or unsurety of how to handle the situation, to avoid or to put off that hard conversation. But many times as we discover or as we seek to understand that person better, one of the things we may find is that they don't understand what our expectation is of them. This can be true in our families, it can be true in our work, where we think that the person understands what we want, but in actuality they don't. And so avoiding or getting beyond the fear of having the conversation can help understand the person as well as understanding if they're capable. It's easy sometimes just to assign a task or say, I expect you to do this, or even with our own children, do this or give them something that we expect of them. But it's really important to understand, do they know what we're asking them to do, and are they capable of doing it?
And many times we can arrive to this understanding through a successful hard conversation. And that's why we wanted to do this series of podcast episodes about hard conversations. Like we shared in a previous episode, when we first sat down to create this podcast in the first place, it was after we had created at least the structure of a book. I would say maybe 80 pages actually, 80 pages of our hard conversation book that was dedicated to helping people overcome that fear that my father just talked about, or those obstacles that we either intentionally or unintentionally put in our way. And we felt that we could do a better job in a podcast. So that's why we're excited to start off our podcast by focusing on a series of episodes about how do you have a hard conversation, not only to get through it and wipe off the sweat from your brow, but rather enrich the relationship and walk away with a better connection and a better understanding of that other person. And to my father's point, also walk away with a better understanding of the task or the need to change.
So what are the parts of having a difficult conversation? As we've talked about this and discussed it, we felt like there were 5 areas that really are part of having a hard conversation.
And the first of those will be the next episode that you'll hear. It's all about understanding the person first and foremost. We're going to talk about that through what's called the OIC model.
The second is the home court advantage, and that refers to giving the person that you're having the hard conversation with the home court advantage. Have that conversation in a place where they're comfortable. It'll allow them to be more open and more upfront with how they're feeling and not feeling like they're being called into the principal's office.
Which is why it's also important for number 3 that we have a goal of where to take that discussion. Being able to figure out the destination, or at least intended destination, helps to make that conversation go in the right way, and it helps to keep us both accountable at the end of the conversation of ensuring that we did end somewhere productive, even if along the way there may be some twists and turns.
And with that would be a discussion on starting that conversation in the right way. In order to get to an end point, we have to know a beginning point. And though the way we get from the beginning point to the end point may take a different path, at least we know where we started and we know where we're planning to end. And it's important to know those 2 points and then allow the discussion to unfold as it will, but on a trajectory to get to where we want it to end.
And then once we've finished with the conversation, sometimes we feel, I'm done. Again, wipe the sweat off the brow. But the reality is there's a 5th essential step that we'll talk about in our 5th podcast that's all about protecting the relationship and ensuring that that hard conversation had lasting and meaningful impact not only on the other person, but on ourselves.
And with protecting that relationship, it's important that we look at it throughout the entire beginning and end of that discussion so that we're continually working to protect and enrich that relationship.
We also have an additional episode that we're going to share at the end of our series that's going to take questions that we've accumulated along the way from listeners like yourself. We encourage you to share your own feedback and thoughts, as in that additional episode, we will provide our insights about some of those frequently asked questions. Again, we encourage you to listen to all of those episodes so that you have a better idea of how to handle your own hard conversations.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode, and be sure to check out our other episodes where we explore additional ways to enrich your relationships at work and with your family.
Before you take off, we invite you to subscribe and share what you liked from this episode with friends, colleagues, and family. Take a moment and share feedback and suggestions with us directly at enrichrelationshipspodcast@gmail.com.
Lasting change comes from enriching your relationships both at work and at home.